I'm very glad to be sitting amongst such experienced people. It's a very good chance for me to learn and listen to all of them. Uh, the the issues in Afghanistan for the last 50 years can all be very easily and connected to ISI's working in Afghanistan, and it starts all the way back since in 1893, when the Duran Line was drawn. It put a very big carve into the Pashtun tribes and made sure that the Pashtun become a weaker tribe in the nation, and for the British to be able to have a buffer between them and Russia. Then, when we come down to 1947, these lands are given to Pakistan, which had nothing to do with these lands. If you have a issue or something between two entities, which in this case was Afghanistan and the British, you cannot have a third entity come in and take over that issue, which is Pakistan in this case. So for Pakistan, as it's always clear, they see Afghanistan as an existential threat. They see Afghanistan as a place where they want to always have control over. They see it as as they call it, the strategic depth policy, where they want to always have Afghanistan under their command, so that when there's a war against India, it is where they can retreat to, which are all extremely bad options for Afghans to live under such policies of the ISI. When I look at how the ISI started its work in Afghanistan, there is the beginning phase, which was in 1975, when the Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and the ISI, led by Major General Ghulam Jilani, also together with Nasrullah Babar, who was the head of the Frontier Corps at the time, they called in and made a safe haven for the jihadist people, the Deobandi people, to come and have a safe shelter in Pakistan, in the NWFP, which was called then, and now it's called the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They called them there to train them. They gave them weapons, and then they sent them to do attacks against, at that time, Dawood Khan's democratic government. So at that time, you did not have any communist ruling. You did not have any Soviet Union in the country. It was Dawood Khan's democratic government at the time. And these people betrayed their country, and they went to Pakistan and then started attacks. These attacks, then they attacked Nangarhar, there were attacks in Panjshir and different other parts of Afghanistan. Then, when in 1978, the Thor, we call it the Thor Revolution, or the April Revolution, when the Democratic Party of Afghanistan, Khalq, took over, did a coup and took over. And after that, in 1979, when the Soviet Union came, then suddenly ISI found itself in a very good position, because it solidified the already work that they had done with these entities and these Islamist groups, and it solidified and started funneling money from the Arab countries and from America, and suddenly Charlie Wilson's war became extremely profitable for Pakistan. And this included, because these people they found a place to be in Pakistan, and they were handled by the ISI. All their needs were met by the ISI, and these needs, from my own experience, being the grandson of Gulbuddin Hikmatyar and the son of his right-hand man since the last 40, 50 years, my father. I know how they would operate. They would make sure that these people always need to come back to the headquarters or to the ISI handlers to get things done. They would give them permits for non-custom cars, which they could drive without having to pay the custom for those cars. And that those cards would say that this is a a ISI car, and but the expiry date would be very short, something like 6 months or something, and that would mean that everybody who is issued these cards would always come back to renew, and which means that they would bring all the information back, and then there will be a debate and talking. Every time anyone, for example, my father or any other political figure would have any kind of travels and go to other parts, they would always be called for a meeting, depending on their rank. The same kind of rank, people would interview them to understand what is happening and where they're going and how was their meeting with their till to this extent that even if you would go to the Afghan embassy in Islamabad, as soon as you would come out, somebody out of nowhere would come force his hand in your hand and just take you to the side and start asking you questions, and to be that much like shameless way of doing all this, because they knew. Another thing they used to do is that if there would be any political asylum seekers who were opposing to the ideas of Islamic groups, and they would have to take refuge in Pakistan because of the war being more becoming extensive in where they're living. They would be targeted by groups, and especially by my grandfather's group. A very big example of it is that in 1988, Sayyid Bahauddin Majruh, who was from the Millet, Afghan Millet Party, who was killed in Peshawar, and it is very on good knowledge I have it that it was done by my grandfather. Yet the ISI would turn a blind eye through if there were any kind of killings happening between Afghans and between these factions or these factions and other Afghans, the ISI would always keep a blind eye to it. We know that in the late 1980s, Dr. Najibullah was trying to reach some kind of agreement, some kind of peace agreement with the Mujahideen, especially with Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, and was willing to give him any kind of part in the government. Yet the ISI would just refused and would not let him settle. And his famous words were that I'm gonna get out every one of you from there. These are like some of the even after after the exit of the Soviet Union in the Civil War, they had extreme hand in still funding these groups. We saw that the war on Kabul, almost when there was a civil war in Kabul, almost killed 70,000 Afghans there in Kabul, and these were the same groups that were being fueled by the ISI. Once the ISI saw that these groups were becoming kind of not handleable and they were all becoming a bit independent, they started creating the Taliban. In the 90s, they gathered these people from these different madrasas and put them together, and because of all the knowledge that they had already gained from people like Colonel Imam, who is a very famous figure who had a big hand in the creation of the Mujahideen, and his real name was Brigadier Sultan Amir Tarar, and he was known as Colonel Imam. And he had a very big hand in the creation of the Mujahideen, and then using that knowledge to create the Taliban. He was known to be fighting alongside them. He was known to be there with them all the time, which tells you how much invested the ISI was with the Taliban. The way fate has it, his death video was launched by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. It's a strange change of events. Some of the other things that was done was the hijacking of the in 1999 of the Indian flight IC 814. And this flight was taken to Kandahar, Afghanistan, when the Taliban were ruling there. And the requirements were to release some of the terrorists, and especially Maulana Masood Azhar. And eventually that is exactly what happened. So that is how the Taliban were a tool in the hand of the ISI, just using them any way they wanted. And then we come to the 20-year war, war against the democracy and the presence of the Americans. As we know, that after 9/11, the Americans changed the policy to, as Musharraf would call it, you're with us or you're against us. Musharraf did create a few groups in the army or the ISI, which would go and start collecting and sending, imprisoning people from these parties, which were strongly anti-American people. And but the way the 20-year war was done was to make sure that Afghanistan bleeds slowly. There was no, you can see that the numbers for the American and the NATO deaths in these 20 years is extremely low compared to the 70,000 plus. Maybe this is a conservative number, but the 70,000 plus deaths of the military, Afghan military, and the Afghan civilians. Also, one of the main thing that was done was to create tens of thousands of madrasas in KPK, again in Pashtun lands, making sure that this poison is well put in place over there. And these 20,000 plus madrasas became a very big factory for the Taliban, as well as for the Pakistani Talibans or TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And once, which, as was said now, has become a very big pain for Pakistan itself. I mean, there are factions of it which are still aligned with Pakistan ISI, and they are under control. But there are also factions that, after Afghanistan was liberated in their eyes, they now no longer have anywhere else to do their jihad. So they are attacking and fighting against the Pakistan military to bring Sharia law there. I think I'll stop it here. A lot of the points that I was going to talk about were very well covered by people who are much more senior than I am. I'm just very happy to have been in this talk.